This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest, the podcast which brings you reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema and instead went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me, as usual, is Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
In this week's episode, we've got a disparate group of films to look at, kicking off with a couple of horrors. We have the Friday the 13th fan film, Jason Rising. Then we've got a bit of werewolf action with Bloodthirsty. Then we got three sci-fi movies to look at, New World Order, A Feral World, and Battlefield 2025. Then it's off to Indonesia for Deed of Death. And our short shot this week is Black Market Brawl. And to wrap things up, we've got the DTV throwback, Cold Moon. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Jason Rises. This is a fan film from the Friday the 13th franchise. Set shortly after the fourth installment of Friday the 13th, the final chapter, we find three female convicts escape custody into the area near Crystal Lake, closely pursued by two US Marshals and local deputies. Their presence disturbs the deathly slumber of one Jason Voorhees. Okay, straight over to Steve.
I enjoyed this actually. Quite good. Not as well made or slick as, say, what was the other one? Is it Don't Go
Never Hike
Hiking in the
Alone?
Snow?
Yeah.
But better than Voorhees. So I thought the acting was great. I thought the performances were good. The script was actually pretty decent as well on this one. Overall, yeah, it was enjoyable, very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big Friday the 13th fan, to be fair, but I think this is like the third or fourth of the fan films that we've watched now.
Yeah.
Well, this is definitely at the top end of them.
It's. I mean, Friday the 13th. I must admit, when I was growing up, in my teens, I gave them a wide berth. Same with Halloween, because I wasn't interested in crazy people with knives. That didn't sort of really bother me. I was sort of more into the sort of supernatural stuff. But I must admit, I'm going back through them now. I think I'm up to part 5 or 6, and I do find them quite interesting and very entertaining. Rich, how did this one stand up for you?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. This was the second Jason fan film that was released in about a week. I think the other one was called His Name Was Jason, which was an hour and a half, and I haven't really
not written. Yeah, a bit pushing it. Now all I can think of is Barry Manilow. His name was Jason. Sorry, guys.
No, so his name was Jason was as a slight digression. Quite interesting in the setup is that it was very much focused on like three older guys going into like just going out on a hunting trip kind of thing. But it was spending a lot of time getting to know them and everything. It was a bit too much for me, and it was quite low budget in that. So it was more closer to Voorhees, which was about an hour and 40 minutes, wasn't it, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
This one is just under an hour, which I think is a really good running time. If you hour and 10 minutes, I think is good. There's a wide variety of characters here. The dialogue's quite good. The setup's quite interesting. Still sort of touches on all the familiar elements, but also is doing something slightly different. I mean, there's the whole the sort of prison or was it detainment center or whatever it is where the prisoners are, which is basically looks like a shed with a sign on it, unfortunately. But the
it's
rest...
one of those sort of farms, you get these sort of like sort of prison farms. That's what I sort of came across like.
Yeah, so at times it looks a bit funny because where the office where the guards are is basically it's just like bales of hay, and that's sitting around. Just looks a bit odd. But in terms of the quality of the film, overall, it's really good. Got a nice amount of money. There's some special appearances in the film, to please the fans. Lots of fan service. The prosthetics and the makeup and the look and Jason himself is all very solid. There's not a lot that's wrong with this, really. It's a really good, faultless movie that you can watch for free over on YouTube.
Absolutely. I think the cinematography in particular is
absolutely.
The lighting and everything.
That makes such a big difference.
It does. It does give it sort of proper sort of feature quality. The acting is all really, really solid. As you said, the script's really good. I got a couple of bugbears. Well, I got one main bugbear in that I kind of wish the guys making these films watched each other's films, and because there's a lot of repetition in what's being covered in the sort of the lore of sort of Jason and things. So again, we sort of like get flashbacks to what happened at the end of the first film, beginning of the second film. I mean, I think it was.
Oh, we haven't even talked about Jason's mum in this one. They do something really interesting with her.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. The way he sort of escapes from his grave was superbly done, and it is something which hadn't been done before. Which that was a real sort of high note. There is some good sort of, as you said, sort of fan service stuff. They do some good callbacks in this, and there are some sort of nods to other characters. Certain characters get mentioned in passing. If you're a fan of the series, you know exactly who they're talking about. Yeah, it's just very solid. I just found a couple of bits. It was, if you've seen a few of these films or if you've been watching, the series of films, then they keep hitting the same notes. Albeit very well. There is that. Maybe it's the same thing with like the Spider-Man films or Batman films. Do we really need to see his origins again? Do we really need to see Bruce Wayne's parents being killed again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone knows what happened. There's no person on the planet who doesn't know how Spider-Man got his powers and why Batman is Batman. And as if you're a fan, and this is made for fans, I think maybe a bit more sort of narrative shortcuts could be used. That's just my opinion anyway.
I see where you're coming from, but to me, he has watched some of them, but like I say, many, many years ago. It just gives that little bit of filling, in case you're not a big Jason fan, basically.
And I don't mind that, to be honest, myself. I think it's all part of the formula and the conventions of these films.
Fair dues. Okay, this is free on YouTube, so we're not going to score it, or are we going to score it?
We should score it, absolutely.
We should score it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then, Steve, how are you going to score this?
I'll give it 7.
7. Yep. And Rich?
Yep, solid 7.
I'm joining you guys on a 7. This is, it's 58 minutes long. If you're a fan, this is really, really good. These guys know their stuff. They know how to make films. It's definitely worth checking out. Our next film is Bloodthirsty. Gray is an up-and-coming singer-songwriter who is struggling with violent hallucinations. She and her girlfriend are invited to the country mansion of infamous music producer Vaughn Daniels to work on a new album. However, Vaughn has long been suspected of killing his wife and has a strange, manipulative air about him, and Gray's hallucinations are getting more vivid. 2021, guys, is the year of the werewolf. This is the fourth film that I know of to feature werewolves and be released this year. If you think of like the classic sort of universal monsters of the Mummy, Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, etc., etc., they're nowhere to be seen this year. This is purely sort of the Wolfman or the Werewolf, and this is a lot more conventional than some of the ones we've seen, but enjoyable all the same. It does have a couple of I have notes, shall I say, which I'll get into later. But let's hand over to Steve.
You know what? When I put this on, I wasn't really. I was thinking I'm going to hate this because normally when it's something where there's music involved, a lot of the time that kind of puts me off because the songs are normally quite shit, or just don't do anything. But I must admit, with this, I've really, really enjoyed this. Like I say, it's not exactly bringing much news to the werewolf genre, but I thought the way it played out and the twist was I thought was quite impressive because I didn't really see it coming, to be fair. And the songs actually really worked well with the film, and the building the songs up and how they were writing them and stuff like that. And then you had like little niggles of what was to come, or breaking through. And yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable. It was weird seeing Michael Ironside though, just for like 30 seconds, and that was it.
Blinkily missing. Yeah. By the time you realise it's Michael Ironside, he's already gone. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a bit of a weird one, but no, I actually really, really enjoyed this. To be fair, it wasn't what I expected at all, and it worked really well. I thought the Grey, I thought she was really good. I think the only niggle really is Vaughn. I think sometimes he was chewing the scenery a little bit too much, to be fair, in a couple of his scenes. But apart from that, really enjoyed it.
Cool. Rich, what did you make of your fourth werewolf film of the year? Or this is your third?
Third or fourth? I don't know. Yeah. I can't remember. But it's definitely the year of werewolves and Jason Voorhees. I think there seems to be a lot of him. I mean, there's another we were talking about a Jason film a minute ago, but there's another one around the corner. So I think so. so we'll probably have another Jason, another werewolf by the end of the year. So it touches on lots of sort of familiar stuff that we've seen before. The hallucinations and awakening. The sort of hidden side of herself and all that sort of thing. There's a Ginger Snaps kind of feel, I think, to the proceedings. The Michael Ironside appearance is quite nice, but as you say, he's getting on now, so you don't actually until he speaks, you don't actually know it's not really his mind, because he looks like Wilford Brimley or something these days.
Yeah,
it's always a good value, seeing him turn up. The plot itself, it's that kind of three people in a house kind of setup that we've seen quite a lot of lately. So you got the singer-songwriter, the producer, and then also her other half, and the sort of interplay between them, and the cat amongst pigeons and all that sort of stuff. So there's tensions there that all work out, and all the sort of werewolf stuff is sort of bubbling under the surface. I'm just going to park that bit at the moment, just to sort of focused on the singing songwriting element, which I wasn't so sure about, because like Steve was saying, a lot of these films, when it's like when the main character is a performer and they're supposed to be like a really successful performer, the songs and that do not back it up. They're not good enough. So that weakens the story. But this, although it starts up, the songs at the start I don't think were that good, but that's kind of the point. The way it progresses, and the songs are really, really strong. Very, it's by an artist called Lowell. Very melancholic, songs. Very, sort of lyrical ballads and stuff. Really, really, really good. Really soulful. That worked well. And as the story progresses and the payoff with all the vampire, not vampires, the werewolf stuff.
Werewolf,
You know,
yeah.
because it could be a
Could go
vampire.
either way.
These things are often interchangeable sometimes, but they kind of, it's one of those films where they make a big deal of like, oh, she doesn't eat meat or anything, and she's a vegan and whatever, so it has more impact when she is tearing flesh apart and stuff. So, which I think is not really necessary in these days. It's that's kind of been done, but I can't really fault it. It's an 85 minute film. Good songs, engaging story, engaging dynamics between the actors, including character actor Greg Brick as the shady Simon Cowell-ish, but not quite, music producer character and stuff. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. The Vaughn character reminded me of another actor. There's a film I watched called The Final Scream, which is about an actress sort of auditioning for a horror film, and you find out that the director is horrific himself, and he's got a similar dynamic to sort of Vaughn. The way he sort of draws out this actress's sort of character, and so that sort of interplay works really well in the film, as does his attempts at isolating Gray from her girlfriend. Sort of almost sort of driving a wedge between them, basically, which worked really well. Yeah, this looks great. The transformation effects were done really well. There's an early
definite nods to
American Werewolf.
American Werewolf.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it, is the fact that the transformation is mega painful. You can hear her bones cracking and stretching and stuff. Or even though you're not actually seeing any actual special effects, it is basically her contorting her body with the sound effects. But it works really well, just on that basis. And then you get the sort of, the full makeup effects things coming in. But yeah, no, really, really good. What's the actress called again?
Is it Lauren Beatty?
Lauren Beatty.
Yeah, Lauren Beatty.
Yeah, very, very game performance, because she has to chomp down on all that offal and what God knows what she was stuffing in her mouth at the end, but there was a lot of it, and she was quite happy to get at it. This was. I'm glad we got to cover this, because we heard about this film quite late. I think we had about a week to actually get hold of it, but I'm glad we did. How are we going to? I believe
it's playing Fright Fest, isn't it? Or
I think it did last year. Last year it did.
Oh, it was last year's Fright Fest, right? Yeah.
Scores on the doors, then, guys. Steve.
I'm stuck between. I'll go with 7. Very high 7.
Yep. Rich.
I'm going to go another 7 and just say Catherine King-So was really good as the girlfriend character as well.
Yes, she was. I'm joining you guys on a 7. I think, a lot of the enjoyment from this is going to vary depending on how much you get into the music. I think because if it's not your thing, I think you may struggle with it, or you may have find your finger on the fast forward button, to get through the songs. But no, we enjoyed it. We thought this was very good. So 3 7s for Bloodthirsty. Go check it out. Our next review is New World Order. Following a devastating alien invasion, 2 survivors must work silently lest they are discovered by the alien robot overlords and find a way to make a huge dent in their armada. Well, it is, isn't it? Okay, so, the elephant in the room here, guys, is this, it's nicked its main premise from A Quiet Place. In that there is 0 dialogue in this film. I think there's like 2 words shouted, and that's it. I believe this is from Norway, or it's set in Norway.
I think it was shot in Finland, but I think it's actually German.
Okay, Yeah, interesting.
But that is not an issue because
Not an issue because
nobody
there's no
really
dialogue. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Well, although there is a couple of bits where they exchange bits of paper with English language notes on, which was puzzling me because I was like, they're not. I don't think they're English, but
yeah, but the thing is that they could have done that scene like 3 or 4 times.
yeah, they could have.
And, you know, like they used to do with Ghostbusters and things like that. Anyway, I got when I was watching this, and I'm just thinking, I know what it's like to have an idea, a brilliant idea in your head, thinking no one's done this before. You know, I'm going to be the first one to do this, and it still sits in your brain. You're thinking about it and thinking about it, or you make your film, and because it's a low budget independent film, it's going to take ages to be released, and while it's sitting on the shelf, suddenly A Quiet Place comes out, and you go, "You bastards!" Yeah, it's like because you know ideas do sort of like gestate, and eventually they naturally come to fruition. So more than one person has the same idea, and obviously the one with a bigger budget is going to come out first. So I don't know if that's the case, or it's just whatever. But I more or less like this. There's a lot of repetition, but it is very well shot and edited. I did notice at the beginning, the first few shots, where the guy's sitting in the car looking at the house, and it's just the way it edits from outside the car to the house, then back to the car looking at the man, then back to the house, then a close-up of the man. It's just really well composed. So I did like that side of it, but there are one or two little niggles I'm sure we'll come on to. Steve, New World Order, Quiet Please.
Yeah, it was a slog. This, to be fair, it reminded me of the samurai film we watched the other week.
Oh yeah,
400 to 1 or whatever it was called.
Yep.
Like I say, great idea, not too good in practice. It was a slog, to be fair. I found it very, like you say, it was quite repetitive. And I think the fact that it was silent, it just didn't grab me. I was bored, to be fair. I mean, like, you've got 20 minutes of him pulling a box, and that's it. It was like they would, I think it'd be good as a short, say 20 minutes, half an hour, but they've just tried padding it out.
See, if they'd played Depeche Mode's "Enjoy the Silence" over that sequence,
yeah,
that would have worked.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just, I mean, I thought the character, he was a bit of a dick. He knew what, he's haunted by his past, what he did, to get the van and stuff. And that was, okay, I mean, I presume he was on some, I don't know, using some drug to sleep at night because of the trauma that he's got or whatever. And I like that it didn't really go into what happened much. It was basically, right, here it is, this is a setup, we're off. And then a little bit, I think there was it was an advert or something that was played, like in German, where, oh look, these are the new robots that we've built, blah blah blah, and then all hell kind of broke loose. Even like the action scene, where him and his mate are fighting the robots or whatever. Yeah. Still, again, no dialogue in that at all, and I think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's been executed very well.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's only when he meets the woman that she's able to convey to him, that talking's going to get you killed. So she's figured it out, but nobody, nobody else he'd encountered before.
Well, that was one thing that kind of threw me. Is it just voices they're attracted to? Because, like, A Quiet Place, it was noise. It wasn't.
Yeah, is there any sort of disturbance?
Yeah, but with this, she's firing guns, and they're not they're not picking that up. It's literally just voices, it seems to be.
Yeah, because he's driving his car, nothing's happening. Yeah. Anyway, Rich, how did you get on with the New World Order?
Well, for the reasons you've just been saying, I don't think that the central conceit holds water. The whole idea that literally, they can make as much noise as they want as long as they don't speak. It just didn't make any sense to me. I just didn't think that was reasonable. It just sort of it was like it was only for the purpose of the concept. It didn't seem to make sense in terms of a story. I did struggle with the film, and it's once I figured out what it was going for, I was like, okay. And gave it a chance, and I was hoping that engaging stuff would happen and that, but it doesn't really. I mean, for me, it was a whole lot of nothing. I mean, there's the bit we say, the moment when how he got the van, how he got his vehicle and stuff. That's a good scene. I like that. I think that's a really, really quite well executed moment. There's a bit where the two main characters who have been in conflict go their separate ways. And there's a sort of quite a tender moment between them in just done purely in gestures. I think that's well done. But yeah, for the rest of it, I just didn't think well. So the visual effects are fine for some of it. I got a bad feeling when the movie opened and it's got a really, really obviously stuck on title card for the UK market. The original title is. It's quite an artsy title, actually. It's called A Living Dog, and then at the very end of the movie is the quote: "A living dog is better than a dead lion." So it's got this I don't know if that's come from something.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It seems a bit pretentious to me. But I was just thinking, it was the last time I remember feeling kind of this way about a movie. It was that Final Voyage, and coincidentally, they're both German. So I don't know if it's a German sci-fi thing.
Yeah, I was just wondering to myself, because this is one of those films where it goes into that sort of meticulous level of detail, which is exactly what the Final Voyage did. If you wanted to know exactly how to repair a battered old spaceship before launching it into space, that is the film to watch. And similarly with this is like one of those ASMR videos on YouTube, except instead of someone brushing their hair, it's someone sort of pulling a box up the side of a mountain, and it just goes on and on as you say, and I like the payoff at the end to a certain degree, but yeah, it is a bit painful to watch at times. It's like, for fuck's sake,
I'd say I'm on
every single step.
Yeah, I'm with Steve. I think as a short film, it would have probably worked much better. Just sort of truncate it. Don't trim all the fat off of it. Don't just try and make it an hour and a half for the sake of you've got to make it an hour and a half.
Yep.
It's just a slog. It was a real slog.
The special effects in this film, I thought, were on a par with something like Alien Outbreak.
Yes.
Which we reviewed last year, I think. Or was it earlier this year? It's a totally different design, robots and things, but it's that sort of level of how they blend into the into the film itself, which I thought was pretty good. And you get some sort of giant ones as well, which work really well. Okay, anything else on this one?
No.
I think all has been said that needs to be said.
Yeah, and we certainly talk more than they do in the film. Okay, scores. Scores on the doors. Steve?
5.
And Rich?
I'm going to go a 2.
Jesus, I'm going to go a 6.
Okay, quite a wide spread there.
Nice wide spread. So mileage is definitely going to vary on this one,
I do have another passing and a final thought. Sorry, is just
Yep.
I noticed that A Quiet Place was 2018.
Mhm.
This was originally released, apparently, according to IMDb, in 2019. So
Hmm.
very close together.
Yeah.
Possibly made at the same time. It might not be that one was feeding off the other, but
No, but it's like when suddenly two Columbus movies come out and things like that. Two Robin Hood movies that come out at the same time. It's because those sort of ideas just gestate and just float to the surface at the same time. So there you go. A 6, a 5, and a 2 for New World Order. Our next review is A Feral World. In the post-apocalypse, a boy called Sonny is befriended by a woman looking for her daughter and encounter an army of children scavenging for a man called Jasper. No, this wasn't for me at all, guys. Steve, what did you make of it?
Yeah. It was on a par with the last one we've just done. Performances weren't particularly great. The story was, again, just massively overblown and completely dragged out. It could have been done easily, taking 20 minutes, half an hour out of it. The acting was atrocious. I mean, Jasper, Jesus Christ, he's an absolute. The character's just an arsehole. He's like Jimmy Savile,
It was a bit pedo-y, wasn't it? Basically?
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
setup.
I mean,
yeah.
And again, it's kind of like it's like an episode of the series of The Walking Dead, where they're walking for ages, they find some place to settle, and it kicks off. And it didn't make sense in a way because it doesn't show what happens in the apocalypse, basically. All we get is she gets punched and her daughter gets kidnapped. And that's the only backstory you get. And you think it's something to do with these little microbots or something that he's got there. And the scene with the dog as well, that was just not needed. I'm sorry, but that really pissed me off. That scene, I was fuming when that happened. He dragged like a seal's bollocks, to be fair. It was just not for me at all.
Rich.
Yeah, I was just looking up, and this film was apparently based on or adapted from a short film or two short films from a couple of years previous. I'd be interested to watch those now to see how they compare, because a bit like what we were saying with the previous film, it's sometimes you get these things and they work really well as a short, but then maybe not so much as a feature. I actually didn't have a problem with as much of a problem with this one. I actually quite liked it in the end. It opens with one of the worst visual effects shots of the year. So it starts quite a low point, but then once it settles in, it doesn't overextend itself too much with visual effects and that, and it's much more focused on the drama and the characters and and it's really nicely shot. I thought the cinematography, for a low budget film of this type, or no budget film almost for this, was quite engaging. As I was watching it, it became more and more apparent to me that this is basically a post-apocalyptic Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no other real way to look at it. I mean, it's a boy as the main character. You got this Fagin type of character who sort of looks after and sort of does, gets the kids to go out foraging or whatever he does with them, or acts as guinea pigs for his techno devices or whatever that you see, something like that anyway that's going on. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the interplay. I didn't mind the performances. They're all unknowns, giving it their best shot. The kids stuff, there's you could think of all Lord of the Flies and whatnot, but the kids aren't fighting each other or anything. It's all quite it's all quite relaxed and thing. There's not massive threats around. They're just trying to take off their braces and find something to eat and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, like I say, it's one of these things. I don't really want to spend an hour and a half with this kind of story, with this company. I 45 minutes maybe or something. But say I didn't mind it. It was there. I can't say I was 100% watching it. And it's one of those films I think is a passive watch. You kind of dip in and out. Check your phone or whatever while you're watching it. It's not massively engaging in that sense. But it is what it is.
Did either of you get the impression that the kind of script changes as they went along? Because the opening sequence with Sonny feels very far removed from the rest of the film. It feels like
he's wearing a gas mask.
Well, there's that as well, and but it felt like it was a different film altogether. And I wonder if that was from the short, sort of tacked on.
Yeah.
I have little interest in a film which has a 12-year-old protagonist. I don't really engage with kids as central characters much. So yeah, it just didn't really sort of grab me. It's one of the reasons I hate.
Not you don't like Pan.
Sorry?
Labyrinth then?
No, don't like Pan's Labyrinth. Don't like Mad Max 3.
You like stuff like Pan's Labyrinth? No.
The Devil's Backbone. No. Mad Max 3. No. So yeah, that's me. But it does have its moments. I didn't mind that opening sort of effect shot, but it sort of just goes away. That bit where you see, and it's like, yeah, you never really sort of see it again until they find that sort of drifter had been attacked, and he had those certain nanobites on his arm, and then we find out that Jasper has sort of figured out a way of controlling them to a certain degree. Yeah, it sort of picked up a little bit at the end, but it's just not for me. It's like Settlers the other week as well. Just not my kind of thing. Not saying it's particularly bad, but there you go. I know you did, yeah. But it's not engaging for me at all.
How does this fit with something like Edge of Extinction, which we didn't really cover, but I know you've seen?
That's the thing. Edge of Extinction does this sort of thing much better. Even the flashbacks and stuff, the stuff before sort of the apocalypse and all the rest of it. I thought Edge of Extinction, even though it's a stupidly long film, 2.5 hours, it's still, for me, it's a lot better than this. One thing that I did like about this was the world building. The fact that sort of the woman's got this guy who's the sort of, is he sort of blacksmith or something going on? So you get this sort of idea of like sort of a frontiers, sort of Wild West sort of frontier kind of sort of community, which I did like. I thought that was okay, because that's exactly the sort of thing you'd expect it to go back to. But other than that, just not for me.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen quite a lot of this sort of thing. I mean, even like Occupation Rainfall.
Yep.
They were kind of doing that regressing and living without technology, and sort of you had the different sort of pockets of communities, sort of the Western sort of vibe. But the whole post-apocalyptic films and the relationship with Westerns is very close anyway. It's always been sort of two sides of the same coin. And this could have been played as a Western. You take out some of the technology and obviously the end of the world, pandemic or whatever that has caused it. But yeah, it's I'm not sure there's much of a market for it, to be honest. I don't know how appealing people will find picking this up. It's got another generic sort of sci-fi cover of, I think, somebody standing, walking to away. Well,
it's supposed to be sunny, but I reckon it's they've sort of drawn it as a grown up. So yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they didn't watch the film.
That wouldn't be the first. That would not be the first time, Rich, would it? You know, here's the title of the film. Now draw something.
It is the actual original title. That's one interesting though. They've gone with it was called A Feral World, and it is called A Feral World, unlike the previous film.
Yeah.
Okay. Scores on the doors, Steve.
4.
And Rich.
I'm going to go for a 6 because I like some of the shooting, some of the cinematography.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to join Steve on a 4 for this one. So 2 4s and a 6 for A Feral World. Go check it out. Our next review is Battlefield 2025. Now, if there's ever a mismarketed title, this is it. This film follows different groups of people as their paths cross on the eve of an alien invasion. Do you ever see, there's an episode of The Simpsons where the Itchy and Scratchy show decides to bring in a new character, and it's basically Homer playing a dog.
Poochie.
Poochie the dog. Yeah, Poochie the dog. And the very first cartoon, they're going to go to the fireworks factory, except Poochie turns up and ruins everything. And you got Milhouse sat on the floor going, "When are they going to get to the fireworks factory?" Sort of crying. That's this film in a nutshell. It's if it's a 90-minute film, it is 85 minutes worth of exposition and setup, and 5 minutes of an alien turning up and killing everyone. So we got different groups of people.
And a sort of ending where they go, now it's all kicking off.
Now it's really,
that's the end.
And this is where the film really starts.
Yeah.
Oh, we've run out of money. So we got a family going camping. We've got 2 criminals who've escaped custody. We've got that sort of local sheriff. We've got somebody's dad. It's a tow truck driver. All these just different characters, and they're sort of like, their paths are sort of crisscrossing throughout the day, all leading up to this creature that looks like has escaped from the very first series of Scooby-Doo, and is going to be unmasked at the moment. To be turned out to be Mr. Spencer the gardener. This is worse than the Richard Grieco film we covered a couple of months ago.
It was called Attack of the Unknown.
That's it. Attack of the Unknown. I thought the Attack of the Unknown was, handle this sort of thing a hell of a lot better than this. This is all set up and very little payoff. Steve, what did you make of it?
Absolute dog shit. It was awful. It's bad when the ADR is so terrible that the lips and the words really, really do not match. And I think there was one character, and they just completely overdubbed him. I think it was just to make him sound more southern and thick. The guy who owned the garage, I think it was.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. And it was terrible. There's like you said, there's like 80 odd minutes exposition of trying to set these characters up. And the ones who survive, one of them you don't really see until the last 5 minutes. He just suddenly appears out of nowhere and becomes the hero. And no, the effects were bad. The dubbing was bad. The performances were awful. And it's one of the worst films I've seen in a long, long while. It was absolutely terrible.
And we watched The Deadly Legend last week, so
yeah.
Speaking of which, this is another film which does the old, shooting day for night thing. It's very, very obvious at the beginning when we have this sort of bar scene, and the guy who's the scientist who's supposed to be checking the galaxy for, I don't know, alien invaders, and has got too much of a hangover to check his section. which is probably why they sort of snuck in. And he's at the bar having a drink, and you can tell it's daylight outside. So either he's a seriously chronic, daytime drinker, or they forgot to sort of dim the lights outside, as it were, afterwards. But I digress. Rich, have you got anything good to say about Battlefield 2025?
Well, I actually didn't dislike it as much as you guys. I actually didn't mind it. I mean, taking it for what it was. I can't remember if I watched this second out of these three, which are all admittedly sci-fi slugs. There's more interest. I was more interested in the characters and their conversations or whatever than I was in the characters and their conversations in A Feral World. And at least it had characters having conversations, unlike A New World Order. So the first thing to mention is it's called Battlefield 2025, but where's the battlefield? It's a case for the Trades Description Act or whatever. Misleading marketing, misleading. I mean, it's not a retitle. That's the original title, the original artwork that was used on the UK release. But it's completely misleading. You're not going to get like a big grand sci-fi spectacle. It is a whole bunch of disparate characters having their own little plot lines, starting out with the guy in the bar scene, which takes about 5 minutes of the running time, and them having their stuff, and then they all end up in the desert. Then an alien crash lands, a single alien, and at one point the alien starts taking them out one by one, essentially. So it's kind of a Predator-ish kind of setup, but really nothing like Predator at all at the same time. I didn't mind this as much as I actually didn't mind this as much as I liked it more than A Feral World, because the characters, there were more characters that I was more interested in and their conversations than really what was happening in A Feral World, although it was pretty close. And at least there was something happening, unlike in A New World Order. I picked up. I didn't pick up on the ADR problems, but I did notice that there's one scene where this girl's showing up. She goes, "Oh, I've just got engaged," and she's showing off her engagement ring, and the sound cuts out to a completely different scene, and it's like they didn't correct it. It's like, what? Well, hang on a minute. That sound's not supposed to be there. So that was a bit weird.
I thought
Go on.
my when I was watching it, I thought my internet had cocked up.
Yeah. You would.
Yeah.
So that was just really bizarre. But the central, although it's a similarity to Predator, although the creature actually probably is closer to the one in Jiu-Jitsu, well, it's a really cheap version, more like an asylum film, really. But the central conceit, by the time you get to the end of the movie, it's like low budget Pitch Black, with escaped convict becomes anti-hero alien hunter sort of character, alien killer sort of guy. That's how it's played out for me anyway. That was what the impression I got.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, nothing much. Again, a bit like the first two films. Nothing much happens. Bunch of characters, alien crash lands, alien sort of encounters people and kills people. Big sort of cheap, really cheap looking special effects shot right at the end to say, right, now it's all kicking off, Skyline style or something. Are we gonna get beyond Battlefield 2025 with Frank Grillo or something? I don't know, or Asylum Grillo.
Richard
Grieco.
Come in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here's an interesting observation. We got three. I say interesting. I'm sort of beginning myself up. Three different sort of sci-fi movies. You could look at this as being sort of pre-invasion. Then we got New World Order, which is like mid-invasion, and then we got A Feral World, which is post-invasion. Once the dust is settled and everyone's sort of like trying to get on with themselves. So it's interesting that we get these sort of three different sort of stages, albeit in three very not exactly great films. Okay, scores on the doors for Battlefield 2025.
I'm gonna go 2.
And Rich?
I'm going to go a 4. And before we go, I know you've got to give your score, but I just want to ask: did anyone stick around for the mid-credits sequence?
You're kidding me.
No.
No, okay.
Jesus, I mean that is. I think that strikes one of somebody stroking their ego, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Give us your score, and then I'll tell you what it was.
All right, it's a 3. So a 2, a 3, and a 4. So
Okay.
what happens in the?
Okay, so the film seemed to end a bit early, and I actually stopped it, and then I was like, oh, hang on a minute, there was something there. As the next film that I was going to watch started, no, it was another scene, another bit. So I had to go back and fast forward all the way through the film again to find it again, because I'd already come out of it by this point. And what it was, do you remember early in the film, there's the thing about the used car salesman? Buddy or something, and he's standing, he's an old guy. And he's got all the girls around him and stuff or whatever. Well, there's like a 3 or 4 minute sequence of that.
Jesus, do you think he was one of the investors in the film?
Quite possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know if they were paying out the running time or they just thought they would have a laugh or something. But it's like this long sort of extended spoof ad at the end in the middle of the credits, or it's either the middle of the credits or the end of the credits. I can't remember, but caught me. Very unusual.
Indeed. Okay.
And not rewarding.
So what do you say? A 2, a 3, and a 4 for Battlefield 2025. Yeah. Our next review is Deed of Death. When inept gambler Matt Arip loses yet more money to a loan shark, he has little choice but to offer up the deeds to his father's house, unbeknownst to his father or siblings. As things spiral more out of control, Arip's brother and sister are dragged into his mess to save their family home. I must admit, I was quite looking forward to this. It's an Indonesian action film, pretty classic sort of setup. And while there are some really good bits, there are issues, which I will come back to. Let's go to Steve.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought the fights were fantastic, but I thought the script was quite weak, and there's a couple of characters that really didn't need to be there, like Matt Rip's best mate.
Yeah, the comic relief.
Nice.
Yeah, the chubby sidekick.
God. He was just nails on a blackboard, that bloke. He really was annoying. It got quite a bit convoluted as well, I thought at times. Yeah, there's a deed involved, but is it going up because they're saying he owes this much, and then they're whacking the interest on and blah blah blah. What I did like was the actual scenes with the sister as well.
Yes.
Because that came out of nowhere, really, especially the first one at the beginning.
That first one, yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously, I presume they've all had trained with the master. But yeah, I thought she was great. She was cracking.
Well, it's very unique, isn't it? A female Muslim suddenly kicking ass in the film. It's right out of left field. It really is.
Yeah,
and works so well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously, I think there's a scene at a market later on where, again, she's been attacked, but comes back, but also other members of the community help out as well, which I thought was a really nice touch. And then the last, 20 minutes, where the older brother just goes apeshit rampage, I thought was really, really good. But it is let down a bit, I think, by the script, to be fair. I think it's quite weak. But the fight scenes were fantastic.
Rich, how did you fare with this one?
I wasn't really in the mood for it, and I didn't really engage with it particularly well. The action is really good when it kicks in. There's some stunt work where it looks really painful for some of the stunt guys falling on falling on the hard surfaces and edge surfaces,
very sharp angles and things.
Sharp angles and stuff. They throw a lot of action in, but it's a long film. It's too long, and I didn't really like. I wasn't really particularly engaged with the story and the pace of it. It's nice that it's not really a martial arts film, but they throw in a couple of fight scenes. Say like with the sister, Timar. That's really great. Her scenes are really good. When they're filling time between between the action sequences that involve the main characters, they have them going to watch and bet on fights. So there's a couple of quite good fights that are added in there. They do street racing, so there's a couple of quite fun, Fast and Furious-ishy street race sequences. So there's plenty of action peppered through it, leading up to the sort of the quiet man going off on one to rescue his brother, kind of thing. It's very much a prodigal son sort of story, and it does. But there's a lot of setup that doesn't really go anywhere. They kind of say all this stuff. They say lots of things, but nothing really happens as a consequence. They're talking about the whole thing about the deeds. The deed of death. The deed is the deed to the property which the son, the wayward son, has lost. And there's an old rivalry or something, and it doesn't really pan out. And then you get to the end, and I didn't really get what kind of happened with it. It was kind of like, well, did he just leave it and give it to him back? I don't know. I didn't quite get it. But the action is really good. You got to have real patience getting through it. It reminded me of quite a few films we've seen before. I couldn't remember the names of them, but there was, I think when we covered, there was some like Malaysian films and stuff that we were covering, which had a similar kind of similar style in terms of the structure and the limited budget that they've got.
There was that street racing one we covered, wasn't there? Which I forgot the name of. Was it Red Line, something like that?
I can't remember, but I think that's the one I was thinking, which was also had a guy and like a comedy sidekick friend who was coming along, and they were doing like karting or something. I can't remember what it was. Yeah. But that was the one that came to mind for me. How did you get on with it, Mike?
I enjoy the action side of it. That's a given. But I found the main character is Matarip, and he is an irredeemably selfish cunt. You're building your film trying to get people to emphasize or sympathize with a guy who is just an absolute cunt. And
there's no redemption. They don't sort his character out either, do they? I mean, there's a bit. His father even, takes him in. He's not even giving him a hard time. Starts giving him money to go and think, and he doesn't say thanks or anything. There's literally no reconciliation or
piece of shit. He really is. Even his mates are going, why aren't you answering your sister's calls? And he's like, oh, they're probably pissed because I've given away the deeds to the house. It's like the guy should be on Jeremy Kyle. He should be raked over the coals on like sort of Monday morning TV, basically, for what he did. He's a fucking arsehole.
But they're drawing a contrast, aren't they? They sort of keep cutting back and forth between him and his other brother, who's just sort of who's very quiet, very respectful, very almost he's like pious, isn't he? He's kind of a pious character.
The editing, unfortunately, drags it out. That whole bit at the beginning, he finds out that some people just turned up at your house, and all right, and he sort of legs it back, but it takes him ages to get back. And it's that sort of like, it's almost that sort of German meticulousness where we're sort of following his every step back to the house, and he obviously gets there like everything's already over by the time he gets there, so he doesn't get to do anything. I mean, so the sister has that brilliant little scene at the beginning, kicks the shit out of these guys, which no one was expecting, apart from her dad, who just stands there and lets her do it. It's like, should I lend? No, I don't need to lend a hand. It's my, she knows what she's doing. But I'll just make sure she doesn't go too far. That's basically his input. Some other good fights. The whole thing, the street racing thing goes on too long. It's so repetitive. He does the same thing. He bails and legs it, back back home in that instance. And then we get to the end bit, which has got some great sort of choreography, in this sort of factory. And all through the film, there's been this sort of build-up between Ali, who we know is a Silat master, and this other guy who dresses like an MMA fighter with a sort of close-shaved head. And, they've got some beef in the past. Basically, we find out through a sort of sepia tone moment. And it's been building up. This guy's trying to taunt Ali into fighting him and all this sort of stuff. And then we get to this, it's getting closer and closer. He's waiting for him in the factory, and then he ends up being confronted by this other guy who we've never seen before, who turns out to be an awesome fighter and really puts Ali through his paces. So he has to fight him, which is a really good sort of 5-minute fight sequence. And straight after that, he's got to fight his rival. And it's like, well, pick a lane, guys. It's either one or the other. It's like, I remember ages ago, me and my mates went to see the Harlem Globetrotters play in London, and before that there was another basketball game, sort of local teams playing. So we watched that, obviously, because we were there in the crowd, and then had to sit through another basketball game with the Harlem Globetrotters, and that's kind of what I felt like here. It's like, I've just seen a great fight scene, and now you're expecting me to watch another one immediately afterwards. It just didn't. It just felt like they were over-egging the situation a bit.
And the thing is that also there's not a real payoff, because that villainous bad guy smoking the cigar and whatever, they never do anything with him.
Yeah, who is he?
Did you stick around for the mid-credit sequence?
Don't be ridiculous, Rick.
Oh, that was saying that.
Well, let's just say, I think there's more to come.
I wouldn't mind there more to come. I just wish there was more judicious editing, and hopefully less fucking Arab. Let's concentrate on the brother. Now they've awoken the dragon. Let's concentrate on him and his sister. They're the stars of the film, not this fucker who I literally wanted to kick his teeth in. This selfish little shit. And his family's been visited by bloody gangsters and shit, while he's like playing pool with his mates and just doesn't care. I'll go and bet more money on this underground fighting thing, or take. That was the other weird thing as well. You got this Fast and Furious bit where he's doing these street races, and then he's sort of betting on these underground sort of fighting matches as well, and they get sort of stung on there. They bet on one guy. This was stupid. They bet on this guy, he wins, they win a lot of money, they're really happy, and it turns out it's a fix. So a week later or a few days later, they're back, bet on the same guy because he won before, expecting to make a lot of money. And I'm thinking, well, surely his odds are shortened. If he was the winner, he's the champ. He's got the the wins under his belt. Surely his odds are going to be a lot shorter than the other guy. But there you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet on him anyway because he's going to win. It's just seems a bit ridiculous. But there you go. So
I've just done a little research thing and check on this. So the film that I was reminded of, you're right, it was the street racing thing. It was called Kampung Drift. And we covered it on episode 88.
Our Malaysian episode. Yeah.
Our Malaysian episode. I didn't realize this actually is a Malaysian film.
Oh, right. I've been calling it Indonesian. So, yes.
Apparently, according to the IMDb, I wasn't sure either, but apparently, according to the IMDb, it's Malaysian, which makes sense because it's so much like Kampung Drift.
Yeah.
It's like Kampung Drift, but with added martial arts sequences. But if you're going to watch something with really cool fight sequences and stuff, watch Pascal instead, which was another film we covered on the same episode.
I tell you one I do want to track down. There's a film called K Gangster. Is it K Gangster? Yeah, K Gangster.
Mhm.
I think there's a series of them. You know, stands for sort of Kuala Lumpur. Gangster basically, but they're sort of like a down and dirty sort of, you know, almost like a proper sort of Hong Kong style sort of heroic bloodshed kind of film. I've just seen a trailer for it. I think they're from the 80s, you know, late 80s, early 90s, but never been released in English as far as I know.
Yeah, so this one was originally called Garan, which means deed. It's called Deed of Death over here. It was released in America under the title of Silat Warriors, I believe.
Yeah,
on the
which is what made me think of it in Indonesia. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I felt quite disappointed, really. I mean, there's a definite Tony Jaa vibe, you know. But you have it's like I'd say it's probably more Ong Bak 2 than Ong Bak. So you got a real source.
Actually,
got to get through a lot.
It's more like Ong Bak 3.
Oh, okay, that's. I actually haven't braved that one because I've heard it's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad. But again, you know, when the fighting starts, it's great to watch. But as soon as that packs in, it's a chore. And there's just difficult scores on the doors. Rich?
I'm gonna go for a 6 for the martial arts sequences.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, I'd agree with Rich. 6, just for the fight scenes.
Yeah, this could have scored higher if they'd had another look at the editing and the characters. And the
characters. Trim it down. You know, make it half an hour shorter for a start.
Yeah.
And focus less on the unappealing and anti-hero.
Yeah, absolutely. But absolute kudos for giving us. I'm pretty sure, you know, our first sort of Muslim female action star, which was, you know, in the hijab and everything. It looks, you know, she was awesome. So a 6. So it's 3 6s for Deed of Death. Our short shot this week is Black Market Brawl. 2 brothers attempt to sell a mystic ring to a dangerous fence against their brother's best wishes. This is a nice 10-minute sequence, a little bit of exposition sort of leading us in, gives it a bit of a sort of almost an Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider feel, you know, like the after party to a Tomb Raider movie. And I thought this was pretty stonking. So, Rich, let's go to you first.
Yeah, I had high hopes for this. Written and directed by David Wayne Smith. We've seen a couple of his films before, notably Bad Hit.
Yes.
Which was really good. This shares a very similar visual style and, you know, the action style as well. So this is sort of a top and tailed kind of thing for an extended fight scene. But, you know, there's, as you say, there's a nice amount of exposition. I think this, in terms of an action short, this has everything I want in it. It's got, you know, it's not too long. It has enough exposition, but doesn't spend too long. Very solid action, which is not just like between 1 or 2 characters. There's like multiple characters getting involved. So it's multifaceted sequence. Nice little story beats that are happening throughout. So that, you know, we get like as the story is proceeding, we get a plot development and you know, and a climax being added in, and then a twist, and ending on a, you know, ending at a moment that you want to see more, but you know, in that sort of almost like a Marvel superhero movie kind of thing. It's like, you know, it just kind of has a moment that leaves you wanting more, you know, or like the Matrix, you know, when the Matrix ends, you know, so it's kind of like, right, here we go, and you go, oh, but it's perfect. It's just perfectly what, you know, I don't know concepts or anything, but I think it's just perfect as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Steve, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I liked it. Like you say, it's got sometimes with these, you just go straight into the, you know, the fighting, the action and stuff, but it did give you that little bit of context at the beginning with the exposition. and which to me made it quite interesting because you're thinking, what kind of ring is it? You know, is it magical? Is it mystical or whatever? And then it kicks off and shit goes down. But it's done really well. The choreography was great. I thought the actual setting and the cinematography was really good as well. And yeah, like Rich said, it does leave you wanting more in a way. But it's quite satisfying on its own. It's really enjoyable actually for a shot.
Love the character, the female character who reminded me of like a Gina Carano kind of figure. She's got like this tattoo on her neck.
I thought it was her at first.
Christy Morcos, I believe is her name. She doesn't get enough to do in the movie, but that's kind of it's kind of almost perfect because you want so much more from her, but you don't. But you know, you get just about enough to leave you wanting more. I think she's got such a presence in just her physicality and the costume and makeup and everything. She's got like a Marvel superhero-ish or Marvel supervillain, I should say, kind of thing going on, which I think works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I liked in this is the sort of characterization and the scripting, which you might think is surprising for such a short film, but the idea of these three brothers have broken into some sort of tomb to steal this ring, which has sort of mystical powers and things. And then when they're sort of selling it to this guy, and he's looking, oh, what was it like? And he's like, well, it's a pile of rubble, big root. It was a big place. That is the scope of their imagination, basically. They're soldiers. They're not sort of like, oh, it's wonderful, But no, it's like just another piece of sort of scrubby ground that we had to sort of cover, which I quite liked. The fight scene worked really well, and I like the sort of whole, the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario that sort of develops out of it. It works really well. Sort of nice, tight 10-minute short. Anything else to add?
No, I'll just say, anyone who's listening, if you watch this and if you haven't seen Bad Hit, double bill it with Bad Hit and maybe check out Oasis and stuff as well.
Yeah, both films have got some wicked sense of humor as well. It's a good visual humor. Okay, we don't score the shorts. We do recommend them. Skip down to the footnotes and you'll find a link to this. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Cold Moon. In a small Louisiana town, the Larkin family are having a tough time of it. Their blueberry farm is in serious debt with the bank, and the approaching harvest isn't going to produce as much crops as in the past. Things get even worse when young Margaret Larkin is murdered on her way home by a masked killer. Okay, I chose this one, guys. I'm sorry to inflict this on you. This is not a good film by any stretch of the imagination, but I do say this is a very entertaining film. I really enjoyed this. It is crazily stupid.
Hang on. What do you mean it's not a good film by any stretch of the imagination? I disagree with that.
Really?
I want you to lay the groundwork for this claim.
Okay. Let's start off with the accents. Everyone in this cast struggles with the Louisiana accent. We've got Josh Stewart as sort of one of the main characters, the local bank manager, Nathan Redfield. He's definitely stretching with this. We've got Christopher Lloyd turns up for a little bit as well. But some of the actors in this, the younger Larkin kid, there's certain scenes where he's sort of like waxing lyrical and he's staring off in the distance going, I remember when, young Margaret used to do this. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's amateur dramatics. Absolutely. But I still maintain this is a very entertaining film. Steve, what did you make of A Cold Moon?
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. it's you know, it's your typical. I don't know. It's because it's got that supernatural element, but it doesn't really do anything with it in a way. Because basically, it kills all fucking family. I mean, I'm not being funny. That grandma, Jesus Christ, she should have died in the first 2 fucking minutes. She was doing my nutting. She was just all over the place. But then again, you've got bits where it's got some quite good special effects, you know, where some of the monsters, and there's a bit in a graveyard.
Yeah.
With
the snake.
with the coffin. Yeah. And I thought that bit was quite good, but it just didn't really hang together for me. It was too, what's the word I'm looking for? It was too messy, you know. You've got kind of a supernatural element going on, and then you've got, you know, try to get teenage girls pregnant and then bump them off, and it was, you know, is he just pissed, or is he being haunted, you know? But it kind of gives it away, you know, so you know what's coming. And
that's one of the things I like about it, is that, you know, for example, when Margaret is killed, you know, her mum immediately sort of like accuses Nathan as the killer. You know, it's definitely him. You know, he did it. And then you find, exactly, and it's like, she's got no. But the film makes no qualms about it. It goes, he did it. You know, because he's the one who's been haunted by Margaret for the rest of the film. So Rich, I maintain this is a bad but good film. So how did you get on with it?
I really liked it. I thought it was really novel, really interesting, very nicely shot. The cast is really good. We've got Frank Whaley and you know, like
Josh
you say, Josh Stewart. Josh, the accents thing, was a bit. There was a lot of I needed to, because there's no subtitles available, unfortunately. This is on Prime. I did need to turn up the volume quite loud to hear what some of the dialogue was, but the setting and the locations and everything was really good. I thought the plot was crazy, and you know, it's quite, you know, it's, you know, loony.
It's a fever dream.
It's loony. It's got this guy coming along with this kind of gimp mask, but with loads of belts hanging off of it. It's like I don't know what, which doesn't really fit with anything else in the movie. It's just kind of, that's just something he got from somewhere and is just wearing. But then he's driving. The girl is the car is like passing her, you know, like sort of like a hearse-ish station wagonish sort of thing, but it's got like, it just brought to mind something like Phantasm or something, you know, that sort of thing was coming to mind. But the overriding, the film that came to mind most was Psycho, because the structure of the film, you know, like in Psycho, we spend time following one character and then suddenly that character's killed and we spend the time with the villain. The same thing happens here. I mean, the bad guy even puts the same kind of car in the same kind of lake, or not even lake, what is swamp or whatever it is. There's those similarities in terms of thing, and I don't think I think that might be intentional. It's based on a novel, but whether that had the same kind of structure, I don't know. You don't know what they changed, but I mean, this is an 85-minute film. They've really condensed, and they must have condensed the book a lot because there's so many characters and stuff. It's very fast paced. Some of the sequences I thought were really well executed, with the ghost girl, as I'll call her.
She never uses the same ghost stick twice. Always comes up with something new and original to fuck with him, which is really good. But
I'll tell you what I thought was really good was the ghost bicycling.
Yes,
I thought that was really well done.
That was well done.
A really nice sort of chicken game that he's like, right, I'm just gonna stare down this ghost girl on a ghost bike, so just run towards her. I mean, there was some weird stuff, like, you know, some stuff that I just didn't quite ring true. Like, he gets his little brother to help him out and stuff, and I'm thinking, would his brother really be that cool with all this? You know, he's going along with it a bit too easily. There would be a bit more reservation. the daughter of the sheriff. She was really cool. She was very fun, sort of lively, southern, lively southern girl character. Caricature really, not really much to her, but she's quite vibrant. Christopher Lloyd doesn't really do anything in the movie. He's
there for a day, isn't he? Basically,
he's there. It's a bit like Michael Ironside in the other film we were talking about earlier. But Frank Whaley, I thought was great. I really liked, because he's especially recently. I mean, he always used to be like a character actor, an occasional leading man, but you didn't see him. You see him in a lot of tiny roles and stuff these days, or very very much bit parts. But this was a nice sort of meaty role for him, I thought. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this.
I had a lot of fun with this. It's just those. To be honest, it's those opening scenes where it's like, oh, this is going to be such a drag, where the son is sort of like having a sort of look at the blueberry, yield and things. And, oh, we're going to be in trouble.
And his grandma with a fake wig
and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, it's just really, really dragging. But then you get that murder, and the murder is fucking brilliant. It is really atmospheric. As the rain's pouring down. He's wearing that, as you say, the long leather coat and the gimp mask. You don't know who the hell this guy is, and he brutally sort of strangles her, ties her to a bike, and then throws her off the bridge. It is really, really sort of brutally done, and well executed. And then the haunting stuff sort of starts, and it's you're thinking, why is this guy being haunted all the time? And you realize, oh yeah, he's the killer. It's that obvious. But nothing. As I said, everything she does, she throws something new at him each time. She's floating in midair, or as you say, the sort of ghost bike, or turning up as a serpent with her head on, so like something out of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or something. It's just really, really crazy. It's this sort of Southern Gothic kind of horror film.
But there's also a lot of that stuff you're saying, and also for me, and I don't know if this is because I knew it going in, because I had it as a memory from ages ago when this was released I think it was a few years ago it was released. It sort of hinges on this bridge where the first murder takes place, and that's where it all sort of kicks off, and that was reminding me of Beetlejuice.
All right.
Which the writer of the novel wrote. So whether there's some
sort of thing,
so whether there's some sort of and even some of the creatures and sort of, the manifestations of the dead and the playfulness, I think there is a certain follow through there from like the Beetlejuice sort of Tim Burton-y kind of stuff. I think, but whether I've just brought that to it because I already had that in mind, I'm not sure. But yeah,
it's weird. I don't know if they're meant to make. I don't know if the book makes more of the sort of snake motif as well, because it's it turns up a few times, and as I said, snake with a woman's head. But also we get a very quick cameo by Tommy Wiseau.
I did wonder if you caught that.
Yeah,
I was going to ask.
I saw that.
As a snake charmer in the background of one scene.
Well, he's a rodeo guy or something, isn't he? So he's credited in the film credits as rodeo DJ or something. Right. He's just talking to. I don't remember seeing him with any snakes, but maybe he was because it was. It might have been. It might well have been. He did he? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So because it's kind of one of those things you can't really call it a cameo because it's so much in the background.
They
don't even really make a thing. They just got him on there as to appear in it or something. Well, but the guy who directed it is an asylum guy.
Yeah, that's right. He is. Griff First. Yeah.
Son of Stephen First, who the film is dedicated to.
Indeed. Yeah, so this is a lot of fun. I just sort of couch it a little bit, especially those early scenes. They grated up until poor Margaret's demise. Then the film it does change momentum.
It's all about the eccentric characters, isn't it? It's kind of that small town eccentricity.
If Tennessee Williams did a horror film, this would be it, basically. Yeah. Okay, so we don't score the DTV throwbacks, but we do recommend them. This has high entertainment value for sure. It's on Amazon Prime at the moment, so please go and check it out. And that is the end of this week's show. So thank you to Steve and Rich for joining me and slogging through these sci-fi movies and the rest of them.
No problem
No
at all.
problem.
Yeah.
I'd say a pleasure, but in some cases it really wasn't.
Well, as we said this time in last week, even if the films are horrible to watch, they're always good to talk about. So there is that. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also check out our sister show, the DTV Digest Short Shots. There will be a new episode dropping shortly. Thank you for listening and tune in next time.
And please follow us on Amazon or Audible.
Yes, we are now on Amazon and Audible as well.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.